can we expect more from our students given this new tool? If we stop seeing it as something that's an impedance or something that they could use to cheat, what if it was a propelling force to make them be able to do more and go forward more?
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting edition of the Undisrupted Podcast, coming to you live from FETC. Adam, we're joined by Adam. Adam?
That's going to get confusing.
I mean, this is going to be so hard to tell which Adam is which.
I know.
They
both have glasses. They look.
They're so handsome.
They're both very handsome, smart devils, yes.
There you go.
Adam Bellow. Let's see. We've known Adam. I've known you since, 10 years maybe?
I think more. I mean, you and I at least 10 years.
Yeah. Adam once paid me to come to one of his workshops. That's the first time I ever met Adam. It was at ISTE in San Diego 2012, maybe?
That's correct.
And he was handing out dollar bills. I showed the story a couple times.
So Adam.
Oh, no. You know where this is going to go.
There is a history of you paying a hooker.
Well, one time Carl had me come, so he paid me to speak at his conference, so that was...
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, no, it's...
that was very awkward to hand him a check. He was like, this is the first time a hooker's ever... And I was like, don't even finish that sentence.
That was, anyway. But it's fun that you remember that session.
It definitely had a hook. And Adam had, I think, 343 slides in less than 45 minutes, and I was like, man, I accept that challenge, sir. I've never hit that number, though.
It's, slides are free. Why not?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being unlimited. Yeah. Tell the people what you do. Why are you here?
I'm here at FETC, super excited to be with you, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
Reconnect with a lot of folks. My day job is I'm the CEO and co-founder of Breakout EDU, but I also get to do a lot of public speaking and talking about ed tech and about education, so I'm here to kind of share some of the Breakout stuff, and also I'm doing Tech Share Live with Kathy Schrock and Hall Davidson, Leslie Fisher, and it'll be super fun to kind of get to share with them. Mm-hmm. Just excited to be out doing an event, first time in forever.
So let me ask you this. We often like having our superhero stories told. So what is your story? How did you get to where you are now with being a CEO of an ed tech company or a company from education, classroom to here? Like, how does that happen?
Accident.
Most superhero stories start that way, in a laboratory, lightning strike.
That's right. I mean, I think the origin story or whatever is like, that was never my end goal, was to build companies, and it wasn't to be the leader of anything. I started as a teacher trying to serve my kids, and then I'm a giant nerd like you guys in terms of loving technology. And
we take that as a compliment. No, seriously.
That's right. Nerd is the new cool. We can be
that's right.
That.
Geek, nerd.
Exactly. That's right. So I just built stuff that I thought was of need, and then wound up doing that over and over again, and then kind of fell into the space where we got to meet great friends and got lifted up and had things like Twitter come along, which this is Twitter before the dark days.
Current Twitter. Dun, dun,
dun, that's kind of the origin. Everything happened by accident. Yeah. So kind of right time, right place, right people. That's the long and the short.
You, one other thing I'll say about Adam is I've always appreciated your honesty when it comes to your own kids and their interactions with teachers in the everyday schooling life. Because as much as you and I and other Adam, we have our ideals. We have our ideals of what we want school to be. The reality is what we're seeing sometimes come home isn't always that. I follow a lot of what you're doing because we're friends on Facebook, so I see some of the stuff. Talk to me about that, because as a dad, I sometimes get super frustrated at these worksheets, they keep coming home, and I'm like, this is not really the answer to school, but I'm also have to realize these teachers don't have all the resources.
Yeah, and I think that, it's changed over time. I will say, my kids have been super fortunate to have great teachers. I think sometimes there are ones that stand out where it's like, I don't agree with something that they're doing, and that's really hard. I think it's hard to have any educator as a teacher, as a parent of someone in the class. But I think also, as time has gone on, I've learned to, kind of see the reason behind what they're doing, and I think that by and large, as I said, that they've been really great. But there was definitely a period of time where worksheets would come home, and I was very critical of that culture. I think things have thankfully shifted a little bit from there. But
They're digital now. They're
well, yeah, I mean, sadly, that's still the case.
Fillable
but-
PDFs. You can annotate this.
Well, but I will say, like, during the pandemic was actually really interesting because my kid's teacher, he was in 3rd grade, my younger son, was in 3rd grade at the time, and the teacher set up, like, obviously they had to school online, but it was, like, only for a couple hours a day. The teacher went out of their way to set up, like, FaceTime calls between other students and created book clubs. And so, like, that's the year my son didn't learn script because it was 3rd grade and they just didn't learn it that year, but he learned how to read. He learned how to love reading.
Right.
And it was one of those things where it's like,
I love it.
It took extra effort on those teachers to do that, but it fostered a whole new experience for my son. And I feel like those are the moments that are just like, it doesn't take a lot of effort, it doesn't take a lot of tools. It just takes teachers thinking creatively and caring for their students, which is what frustrates me so much about sometimes when we see educational malpractice in terms of like just, those older things that we're holding on
Tried
to.
and true, Madeline Hunter design. Yeah. Ooh.
Well, it worked for me back in the 70s. So
Yeah, why not? That's right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines from people that have been on the ed tech circuit is Kevin Honeycutt has this great line where he says, if you want to change education, you burn the filing cabinets. And I love that. And I'm just like, that's so true.
Yeah.
And I do it with force yourself when you guys do your next keynote. Force yourself to be like, I'm not going to use what I did last time. Any of it.
No slides?
Well,
Let's not get crazy.
I know.
No, I'm the same way. Every time I do a keynote, I have to change it every time for even though I'm the only person that's ever seen that one. Like you're the same way. Cause I'm like, I know I've done this 1,000 times, but I need to change the jokes or change the order or change the thing. And
Well, for me, I haven't been doing it a lot. Like recently, I haven't.
You've been doing the breakout work.
Been doing the breakout work, but also like it just it wasn't my top priority.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just got asked to actually do a keynote coming up at ASTI, which is like
in Alaska.
affiliate.
Yeah,
wow.
great. That's a great. I've been up
Super
there.
excited
It's
about it.
awesome.
Yeah, I've never been.
Or you can see Russia from there.
But the idea was
You have to report back.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Let us know what Putin's movements are.
It's funny because I'm looking at all right, I know that there's this base of content that I want to cover, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, the world has fundamentally changed.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really
for just the last 2
fun
years.
challenge.
Yes.
Like, how can I incorporate what's going on and what my thoughts are different and what I've experienced and seen, what my kids have experienced and seen. It's a lot of things have altered.
That state is interesting too because they've been remote learning for decades.
Yeah.
And I found out when I went up there, I was like, oh yeah, there's some schools that are like 20. It took them 24 hours to get to the conference because they're at the end of the tip of the Aleutian Islands or something.
Yep.
They had to take ferries and planes, and they're like, oh no, we're all remote. I mean, that's all we do is remote learning. And I'm like, well, so the pandemic didn't change much for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're very. I felt like everything was about 10 years before. Like when we walked in, like, oh yeah, they're 10 years behind where the rest of the country is in some ways, except for remote. They're way ahead on that. So it'll be interesting to hear your experience there.
But it's that management of the macro and micro in education. It's like you have to have a plan, a multi-year plan in place, and you have to kind of stick to your plan. But each group of students are different. Your curriculum needs to be adjusted for those students that you have, either period to period or year to year. So to that point, yes, I have this really great lesson, really great activity I love doing, but the kids I have now are different than the kids I had before. So the problems we have today are different than the problems we had yesterday. So you definitely have to be kind of creative in your thinking because you can get stuck in that rut of doing the same practice because it worked previously.
Right.
And that's one thing I do think came from the pandemic, the ability to get out of that norm. Because we were just kind of in that same cycle of doing the same thing, but it totally turned everything upside down and even changed what mastery looks like, what a second grader should know changed.
I think for some, I mean, I agree with the principle. I think that the problem was, and we saw this, I think I've actually talked about it with both of you guys, is like the pandemic changed those things fundamentally, and I think that the biggest shift that we found was like people like us that were like, let's blow it up, let's start over.
This is a great opportunity for ground zero.
I talk about it as like this rubber band effect. The elastic rubber band snaps us back.
Yep.
So fast. I know that's where your podcast title.
The other one, Forward to Different.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, I just feel like there was such opportunity that those of us on the sidelines, and again, like I am not in the classroom making that change. I was very much observing it from a very different vantage point, but at the same point, I was like, this is the moment that we have talked about in ed tech specifically for decades, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it's gone back. like for the most part. But we also see teacher churn. We also see a lot of things that have been the snow globe did get shaken. It just might not have been the results that we were anticipating or hoping for.
I like that analogy too, because when it settles, what happens? All the snow
right.
goes back down into place, and everything's the same again.
Well, muscle memory is hard.
Yeah.
Especially
It
for
is.
teachers that have been, and listen, I give all the credit in the world. I could not imagine teaching through
Pandemic.
that pandemic.
Hybrid teaching was what a terrible idea that was.
Just you're fearing for, on top of your students and caring for them and fearing for them, being, having the same concerns about your own life and your own children and your health and your parents and whoever. Like, there's a magnitude of burden that I think people often, we talk about the classroom itself, but like they were dealing with the same stuff everybody else was dealing with on top of
trying to teach kids
in class, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were out of school at the time, and very much like that's the real concern. So
it's also that people part, and I think anytime you're in a leadership role, it's understanding the people, because that's where we get it wrong at times. We had another guest on, and they were talking about their product and how part of it is teacher focus. We all focus on kids, but if the teachers are the ones that are implementing or using something, we have to keep them in mind, because they've been beat up.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that things are going to be easy for them, and it's going to also benefit our students. Because it is easy to fall back to what we've done before, what's normal, quote unquote, because it worked, it was easy. So if we want them to do things that are new and challenging, it has to also be something that they feel is built around their skill set and the things that they can do. That's one thing I do love about your product.
And I'll be honest with you, I think Breakout has definitely grown in the last couple of years because we've focused on that part. There is a learning curve with it, obviously. I think
Right.
the physical portion of it completely. But that's something where we've looked at, how do we make this easier? Because we don't want to make it, we know the end result is something that you can't get anywhere else. But I know getting there is important for teachers to be able to pick it up and run with it. So we've actually put a lot of thought and care specifically the last 2 years into how do you make getting started less of a barrier.
The onboarding process being less. I like that. I do like the challenges themselves, because whenever I've run one, what I take to heart is the fact that it's risk taking, and failure is a big thing for me.
Yep.
Failure is something that is not acceptable in schools. However, with what happens at Breakout is I feel like about 80% of the teams don't make it in that 45 minutes. And when
at least they fail along the way.
They failed along the way. Some may make it all the way,
exactly.
but they failed while they And it's so interesting to see kids for the first time ever. Like one time I was working with some 7th graders, and the first time ever I've seen them actually mess up and not succeed, and they were not comfortable with it. They had no idea how to react to it. Because guess what? They've always gotten a ribbon, and they've always been successful because their parents have made sure they're always successful. So talk to me about the impetus about design, why that product, and why, this is, how long has it been around now? 10 years?
No, it's almost 8 years.
8 years, so it's still startup-y, but not really, it's growing. What was the motivation? What was your behind you guys building that as a product and putting it in schools?
So it was very simple. I mean, it's very simple. When people say oh, we're building X for Y, right? We're building Uber for airplanes or whatever. The simple analogy was we were building escape rooms for classrooms.
Yeah.
And it started as, this is great for collaboration and team building.
Yes, SEL skills before SEL was a big thing.
That's exactly right. 4-season SEL was a byproduct that, to be honest with you, when we were first doing it, it was almost like you saw it come to life and you're like, oh, that's the spark.
Yeah.
But in reality, it was like, oh, this is different. This is, the original tagline of the company was, it's time for something different. It started because, James, who went to an escape room and was like, oh, we should do this in classrooms. And we're like, oh, we can't lock kids in rooms. And my other co-founder, Mark, came up with the idea I'll build this wooden box and we'll put these hasps and locks and all this stuff on it. And the idea from there, I think, was brilliant because we have, our director of games, one of our directors of games, Patty, who's incredible.
Which is a great title, director of games.
I know.
We have 2 directors of games,
that's
and
a
they're
great
both
title.
the most amazing people you could possibly meet. So
is that like Hunger Games? What is it? The Game Master?
They're incredible. But anyway, so she started making games for her 2nd grade classroom. She's now the directors of games. This is 8 years later. she's been here for years. She does all of our locks of the day, and we have another amazing colleague, Anne, who's making those games. The whole beauty of that, though, is I got to test out those games, 8 years ago in my own kids' classrooms, and it was
that's fun.
my gosh, this is what learning not should be in terms of every single thing, but it's this should be a key fundamental part of learning. Kids can fail. They could fail forward. They could be comfortable with saying, I don't understand it, but how do I get there? It's the only product I've seen where it's you get feedback, tangible feedback. They pull in a lock or they put in a combination on the website, and they're like, no, you are wrong. But I've never seen kids be like, okay, but I want to be right, and I will give up
I will.
My lunch, I'm going to come
My
after
recess,
school.
my
Exactly.
everything.
You see that all the time on
Oh, when
Twitter.
that clock ends, they're like, come on, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. How
Or
many times do you have
explain to
kids
me.
wanting to be in class for 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Or explain to me why I'm wrong. Which, to be honest with you, like I was studying with my son this past weekend for his midterm, and I'm looking at one of these questions, and I'm like, "You got this wrong." He did not care. He's like, "I only got one wrong. It doesn't matter. I did 13. I only got one wrong. I'll still pass and do well."
Yeah.
But with a breakout, it's like, what did I get wrong?
Right.
And why? And I love that with learning, because we always should be curious to figure out how things work and how whether it be puzzles or whether it be anything else in life.
And I think, and it goes to something that I've said a couple of times, when the fear people have right now of AI giving everybody the answers.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to being able to Google stuff. If they can just type something in and get the answer, then we're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Or they're not applying the information we need them to apply.
Yep.
Or are the skills that we are assessing old skills that we don't need to assess anymore because technology has changed how we can access information and utilize it.
Can we expect more from our students given this new tool? If we stop seeing it as something that's an impedance or something that they could use to cheat, what if it was a propelling force to make them be able to do more and go forward more? Like, to me, that's the thing, is like instead of fearing what could happen if, we imagine what could happen if we start this here.
Just changing
and
that,
go
just
further.
just
the inflection. It's literally an
That's
inflection.
literally all you just did differently there.
So-
What could happen if?
Because think about like the skill set now that with technology, kids are able to do things that you had to be some specialized person to do.
Yep.
You could almost put something in outer space right now as a regular person. Before you had to have all these degrees, NASA, all this kind of stuff. But I could actually build a drone, set some things up, get some certifications and all this stuff, and I could do like low orbit flight from my house.
Yeah.
It's a thing that is now possible due to technology. But if we block it and stop it, we're never going to break that next boundary. We're never going to have that next person that's going to be the next Wright brothers.
And I think we have to think of it. AI is a feature. It's not the tool. Like,
Right.
Like, I mean, if you think about Microsoft, they're putting $10 billion investment to bake it into Word.
Yeah.
I think that's the best move we could possibly have because it will, A, democratize it, and B, will now have something that is available to all of these students, to all of these learners,
Not
and
just
adults.
a select few.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's going to be just par for the course. Like, they're going to use that as a base layer. So I'm very excited for it. And I think, again, the fear in teaching, this has happened with every single thing. We've seen this with, they can't bring cell phones to the classroom. They can't have calculators. You can't have a calculator.
Still the
because they have
calculators.
to all of this stuff. And I feel like those are the things. If you look at it, instead of being the tool that could ruin things, if you look at it as a feature that could actually start something new, I am excited for what comes next.
I think about I used to run a film class and doing some film work. You've done film work too,
yeah.
remember? Yeah. Remember all the stuff all the steps you had to go through to record something, get it online, get it recorded. I mean, we're talking weeks of process.
Yeah.
And now it's like I can record it with my phone. I can put a little soundtrack to it. Next thing you know, I got a million hits. Because I'm on TikTok. Are you on the TikTok yet, Adam?
I am a observer of the TikTok. I haven't made a TikTok yet. I'm
He
thinking of my
lurks.
first
He
viral.
lurks.
Yeah,
He goes down the
He's gonna
TikTok
break
rabbit hole
out,
like the
break
rest
out
of
of the
us.
TikTok. Yes.
There are actually some fun breakup videos. But it's funny with film. I remember when I was in film school, we cut on 8mm film. We did 8mm.
Literally
and
cut.
16mm. Literally, I was being taught how to cut film together. And then by
was
the time I
just-
graduated, it was all Avid and digital. But literally, I was shooting on a Bolex, which anyway, dating myself.
Heavy giant piece of equipment.
Silent film. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You had to have separate audio
I
tracks.
wish I was kidding, but I'm really not.
Isn't it crazy?
And then he advanced to the talkies.
That's right. And then I met Al Jolson, and we started to say,
Mammy, hello, my baby. That might not be Al Jolson. That's actually somebody else. That's Jimmy Durante, I think. Yeah. Sorry for that reference. Yeah, 1940s. Well, Adam, where can the people out there find you and find all your great work?
Right here.
Yeah.
Not
No,
me.
not
The
right
other
now.
Adam. I'm
The other
sorry.
Adam.
I'm sorry.
And I think especially it's your podcast. I should be the other Adam. You referred to you as the other Adam. I feel like
You are the other
I am
Adam.
not,
That's true. There's only
so
one Adam in my life.
This is true.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
true. That you could find me here at FETC, but I would imagine that
This will be out a little bit later.
Well, so you could have found me here, but you'll find my ghost. I'm on Twitter at Adam Bellow, very creative name. You could find me, Breakout EDU is readily available as well, at Breakout EDU, or my email is just adam@breakoutedu.com, and that's it. I'm around.
Adam Bellow, one of my idols when it comes to speaking.
Oh,
I
please.
still go and watch his presentations just to learn nuances and trades of one of the people that inspired me to speak. So I'm so honored to have you here, sir. I know we're friends, but I have to tell you that whenever I get a chance in public, because we don't get a chance to do that. Love you, man. Thank
I
you
always
for being
go
on
back
the
and
podcast.
watch his Google Glass video.
The Google Glass to me is the epic. Yes.
Well, yeah, you know.
If you Google him, that's the first picture that comes
You
up.
still have it? Yeah. It's in Hall Davidson's bag, everybody. All right. This has been the Undisrupted Podcast, brought to you by All for Ed. He's Adam, and you can follow him at AskAdam3.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are better together.
And we are better
Undisrupted.